Hey, this is Therese.
And this is Gretchen.
And this is At the Root of It. Hey guys, in this episode we are going to be talking about LGBTQ plus student rights with Izzy, and we will be discussing everything you need to know about student advocacy in these topics and some other things, but I hope you enjoy this episode.
Thank you so much for joining us, Izzy. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what school you go to, what student organizations you're part of, any information you want to share with us today?
Sure. So my name is Izzy Majarowitz. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a senior at Northwood High School, which is in Silver Spring. And I've been involved in a number of student advocacy organizations for the past few years. The primary one, and the one we'll probably be talking the most about today, is MoCo Pride Youth, which is a countywide student organization for LGBTQ plus students in middle and high school. But I've also been a part of some student equity organizations, such as Students Towards Equitable Public Schools and MoCo for Change. And I've participated in different school clubs, including the Gender and Sexuality Alliance at my school and our book club.
That's really great.
Okay, so I think our first question for you is going to be, at least something that I'm really interested in, is what motivates you and what got you to join all of these organizations, and the long-term goal you see when you think of the work you're doing at these organizations.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's there's a lot to those questions. I think what primarily motivates me to do this work is really caring about other people and wanting people to have the same opportunities as me and be able to access the care and the resources, the things they need. And so I would say I got started with a lot of this work when I was in middle school, towards the end of middle school, because at that time was when the Parkland shooting happened, and that kind of awakened a lot of my activism, to see that there was this horrible thing that happened, but there were student activists that rose up after that and were trying to make changes. And so I started to see that we do have a voice and we can use it. And then for specifically LGBTQ activism, my 8th grade year was when a Rainbow Alliance, a GSA, was started at my middle school, and I joined because I already had friends who were part of the community, and I was kind of exploring my own identity beginning at that time. And I just knew that not everything is good in terms of the treatment of our community, and even our rights as students in school. So I decided to get sort of involved in that, to make sure my friends, my classmates, even myself would feel safe and comfortable in school. And I guess in terms of long-term goals, obviously there's the big stuff like broader system change, but
Yeah.
that can be pretty hard to imagine at times, and really reach for. So I think I've been kind of trying to do smaller scale stuff in terms of my outreach, which is really focusing on connecting students from my part of the county, like the Down County Consortium, to different resources, and just trying to make sure that students are aware of the resources that are out there and can have the tools to advocate for more of those resources. So that's what I kind of focus on specifically in most of my advocacy work.
Yeah, and I love that. And I want to touch on a point that you said, how sometimes reaching the goals can be sometimes it's hard to imagine it. And I think that when we're advocating for stuff, when it does get hard, we all deal with it in different ways. We all cope with, because either we're really successful and we're able to achieve it, or it's kind of taking time, and we all cope in different ways with getting to that goal, especially when at times of failure. So what are some ways that you, I guess, as an advocate, take care of your mental well-being when exploring these? Because I know that sometimes while um, fighting for things like LGBTQ rights and just equitability is so amazing, and there's so many things to learn. At times it can be really hard, and I think personally, I think that dealing with your mental health in these topics is so important. So ways that you just take care of yourself and yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently because I know there are things I need to improve, like in terms of my mental health and taking care of myself. I think for a long time, I really enjoy reading and like engaging with media. So if I need to take a step back and have some like time for myself, some relaxing time, I'll often read a book, listen to music, watch a TV show. But I guess like more specifically and with the work, sometimes I've had to like take a step back on things and realize that there are other people I can kind of like share the work with. I've had an issue at times with, taking on a lot and being like wanting to be kind of the person doing all of this work. But there are other people, involved in this for a reason. Like they want to be a part
Yeah.
of it too, and I should like share the load with them as well. So it's like I'm still I'm still working on it. Definitely in terms of all of the mental health stuff, but I think yeah, realizing that like it can be a collective effort um, is what's been most helpful to me.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot about sharing the load. Um, I know you talked a little bit earlier about when you started out getting involved in your school GSA. I was very active with my GSA in middle school too. Um, did you say that it started? Your school started when you were in eighth grade?
Yeah, that's right. We didn't have one previously, but there was a teacher who was interested in sponsoring. So I was one of the like first few people to join.
Yeah. So something maybe a little more smaller scale like that. Would you say that that also helped shape and affect your advocacy experience starting out from there?
Yeah, definitely. I think joining that, which was like a pretty small group, but such like a fun group. It was really nice to hang out with other LGBTQ plus like kids in my middle school, and then I decided to carry that over, yeah, into high school. I've been a part of the GSA at my high school for all 4 years, and technically, I am like the leader of it.
Wow.
I I mean, my MoCo Pride stuff is pretty big, but I kind of became like a de facto leader of my school's GSA beginning in 10th grade, partly because no one else was like there to step up. But I really enjoyed doing that, and coming back to in-person school, we've definitely gotten a lot more students to join. It was hard at times, like virtually last year, which is expected. But I think getting involved in GSA in middle school definitely like pushed me to continue being involved in high school and like um, work on changes like at my local school level, not just the countywide.
Yeah. And I think I love spaces like GSA, especially because it allows people to be in your own like safe, close knit community, especially during the pandemic when all of us were figuring out like where we fit in society and like we're just alone with our thoughts and we're like, I don't know, like trying to like explain your feelings and being able to go to a place like GSA. So like I really I can't find a word for it, but like I am in awe of you and your position in like taking like the lead in these clubs. And
Thank
I
you.
also wanted to touch on the fact that you talked about books. I don't know about you, but I just watched the first season of Heartstopper, and you're probably like,
Oh my god,
what
I
are you
just did
talking about?
too.
It's
Ah!
so good.
I need to
Guys,
watch it. I haven't watched it yet.
You should, you
guys,
should.
I'm like
listeners,
waiting for my friends to watch it with me. Maybe I should just go ahead and do it tonight.
spoiler alert ahead, Heartstopper is so good. I haven't read
Yeah.
like the books yet, but I will now because it's all about okay, I think this is my summary of it is like about two boys and at first they're like friends and it's like it's like British so they meet in like form which I think is kind of like our homeroom and
Yeah.
then they basically just like fall in love with each other and it's just the best ever and I think it's a good representation of like sometimes you can have labels and sometimes you don't need to and also there's like other different like mini stories in it that explore different parts of like the community and I just think it's so good.
I
Yeah.
read the web series for it, the or part of it.
Same.
I didn't finish it. But yeah, it's a good example of representation, feeling comfortable seeing yourself. I went to I think the last MoCo Pride event, and I saw you there, Izzy, and I have to say there is something just so like unstressful about just being in a room or a space just full of like other like LGBTQ plus kids and just being yourself, and there's no pressure because everyone's different, but we all have this one thing in common.
Yeah, definitely. I find it so funny that you all brought up Heartstopper because I literally binged that Friday night.
Mhm.
I was
I did not
extremely
sleep.
excited. And yeah, I've read all of the web comics, so I was very excited and happy for this adaptation. Um but yeah, thank you for for the compliments about MoCo Pride and yeah, my leadership as well. I feel like MoCo Pride Youth has been that for me too. Like every meeting, like I am a bit nervous at times to present and talk in front of the whole group, like all of our members, but everyone, like, it's always such a fun meeting, not just like what's said out loud but also in the chat is often like uh pretty involved, like they're often messaging lots of little things. So I'm glad like that MoCo Pride meetings are like that for other people too, that everybody, enjoys them.
Yeah. Oh, and on the Heartstopper note, I think that giving us a lesbian movie, a lesbian rom com too.
I was watching it and I was like, where is the lesbian couple? Then I realized, then the light bulb flashed and I was like, oh, I
They're
see.
there.
They're there.
Yeah.
And
I
it's not
had
even
to bring
like,
that up because I'm excited about that one.
and it's not even like a little like tidbit. It's like actually like another plot.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think, okay, so like this is kind of also, sorry to our listeners, but this is also kind of like we wanted to also focus on mental health, of course. I think the stress that this has to do with Heartstopper too, but the stress that comes on the idea that society like kind of pushes labels on us, media that represents like different types of people, especially like those who like are able to find healthy ways to deal with, the example being like the pressure of like finding a label, is so like soothing because you're like, okay, like I am not alone. And I think that's like such an important part of representation, especially in marginalized communities, to be able to be like, because I feel like growing up, at least, I don't know, I feel like we're very lucky to have grown up with like a lot of shows, but sometimes you feel very alone, and I think that can also add to like, for example, things like depression or anxiety, because you're just like, I don't see myself in any of these people. And to be able for us to grow up where we see so many shows like this is like truly amazing, because I'm like, wow, like I'm not alone and these characters are just like me in like my own fantasy world. But it's like going to affect the way children all over see themselves. But I guess this is kind of a connector. You guys can comment on that, but this is also kind of connecting to like we see a lot of media representation, but at the same time there's a lot of legislation that is being passed in a lot of states, which kind of restricts like specifically like kids and their expression, um regardless of what that is specifically. But like I just wanted to know your thoughts on that, and also how we as student advocates can kind of combat that kind of legislation, even though we are students.
Yeah, that's a really good question because I feel like that's been on a lot of our minds like recently. Like if you're hearing the news and stuff, I think a lot of people have heard about the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida and the really bad like restrictions of the rights of trans kids in Texas. And that's definitely been really hard to hear. And I've talked with other people in the community that have found it really difficult, to hear about it. And um, I also like sometimes am grateful to be living in Maryland then because for the most part a lot of like the policies in our state are pretty progressive, and so we haven't had sort of this like level of attacks on like the rights of LGBTQ plus students in school and in their homes like in our state. Um, but I think in terms of kind of dealing with that and like taking action, it is kind of hard because when it's like policies that are in another state, like those aren't, maybe your direct legislators or policymakers, but I still think if you have the chance, like people should take action in the form of, petitions, writing their own elected officials. I know it doesn't always have the impact that you want, but it could still show that there are people out there who, care about the rights of LGBTQ plus students and don't want, more attacks on on our rights and our bodies at times. And I think social media can definitely be a powerful tool for that. Just even raising awareness through social media can be one thing, and that's why I like to follow sometimes they're older activists, but and young adult activists who are bringing attention to what's happening like in the country and around the world in terms of LGBTQ plus rights. So um, I guess like the biggest thing is staying informed, but also taking that time for yourself if this is like really difficult to process. Because for a lot of people, like especially if you're a trans person, having to hear about all of these attacks, like it's important to take that time for yourself and um, like have some self-care because that's difficult to hear about.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's like so tough about being a student advocate is that it feels sort of restrictive. Not being able to do everything you want to do, all over the country. And I guess it kind of comes back to that conversation about mental health with stress.
Yeah, definitely. There there are definitely times when I wish I could have a bigger impact like in another state. But that's why I've kind of chosen to focus a lot more on like the local things, in MoCo and then sometimes like in Maryland at large because um, like I know that uh, my voice might have a bigger impact in this area since this is where I
Yeah.
live.
Definitely.
And as like, I guess not mini allies, that's not what I mean. Like we as students are like very like we don't have a lot of impact sometimes. We can create great change, but what can we do as like allies and supporters of this community to like do more? I know you already touched on that. Like what can we do to do more as supporters, allies, and people that are a part of this community? At least in our like MCPS realm.
Yeah, for like student activism. I think like I'm a really big like proponent of really like educating yourself and like searching out resources. I think it's really important for not just students, not just allies, but especially staff in our schools at times to like kind of unlearn some of the things they might like think or know about the community or about like the ways that gender and sexuality work. um, that's why like some students in my GSA and we created this like staff training module this past year for my school. And it was like it was like a 10 or 15-minute module. And it was just teaching staff about some different terms that they should know. And then it was like kind of classroom practices, like um, that you should have a way that you can ask students for their pronouns and make sure you're doing, everything in your power to respect their pronouns and trying to, diversify like the curriculum because teachers and staff in MCPS, like they can have an impact on that. But students, I think also like we need to educate ourselves at times. Like there's always going to be more we can learn and unlearn. And so I know it can be hard to find like those resources or that starting point. Um, but I've found that there like are actually a lot of different resources online from places like Glisten or other organizations or even just social media like even TikTok.
Yeah.
Lots of people have actually learned things, I feel like, especially during the pandemic, have learned things about themselves, about like um, how we shouldn't like see gender as, this limited thing. Um, and so I guess I would just say like the education piece is what I often see as most important. And then from there, you can use that to like inform your action. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I also think that is so important. Gretchen is telling me that it's almost over. Can't believe it.
No.
But I was gonna say that sorry, I'm like losing my train of thought really fast. I was gonna ask you, I know that education is so important and I know that you probably know so much more now than you did probably 4 years ago. So what's one thing that you would probably tell your younger self as like before she started advocacy and like about herself journey wise, if that makes sense?
Mhm. Yeah. I'll try and keep it like pretty short because I know we're almost done. But yeah, I guess advocacy wise, I would like tell my younger self that it's not always going to be easy. There's going to be some really like frustrating aspects of it. You will like run into roadblocks at times with people who don't want change, and also your own like limitations. But to be like more kind to yourself, to be kind to yourself about it. Because there will always be things that are outside of your control, um, and I guess like personally and um, maybe on the like mental health aspect of it, also again being like kind kind to yourself, and like acknowledging when you need to take breaks, and like I said earlier, share the load. Um, but yeah, overall, it's just, to keep pressing forward, but make sure you're taking care of yourself at the same time. And I feel like that's something that as as advocates and like activists, we need to like learn to do better at.
Oh, yeah, I think that message is so, so important. So thank you so much for talking to us and being our like first person to test this out. This is basically the end of this episode. Um, where can they find you? What do you like? Shout out the things that you want them to know, to pay attention to, any like good movies or books that you think that would help them on this topic.
Ooh, we would be here for a long time if I said all of them. I mean, shout out to Heartstopper.
So true.
Everybody
So
should
true.
watch that. I definitely recommend it. Um, I guess for my contact and social media and everything. Well, following MoCo Pride Youth, you can follow them on social media at MoCo Pride. We also have a website. It's just mocopride.net, and even a Gmail, which is mcounty.pride@gmail.com. And that's the Gmail that I run until I graduate. And yeah, personally, I do have an Instagram, and I guess I will shout that out. My Instagram is at _Izzerz, IZZERZ. And I'm not on there too much, but that is where you could find, what I might be doing next as I go to college and continue with my life. But yeah, thank you all so much.
So guys, please follow her. We hope that this short but very fruitful conversation helped you guys learn more, and please go follow MoCo Pride